Hi there and welcome to Ticker Climate. My name is Holly Stearns. It's great to have you tuning in every single Monday. On Ticker Climate, we tackle the climate crisis facing our planet and we examine what actions governments as well as corporations need to be taking. Now, each week we speak with key movers and shakers. My co-host Scott Hamilton joins me now. He is a climate change and energy expert. Scott is an author, researcher and policy advisor with a mission to tackle the big issues and accelerate climate change action. Scott, always a pleasure to have you by my side.
Hi Holly, great to see you again.
Now, really exciting tonight. Our guest is Dr. Jemma Green, the Executive Chairman and Co-Founder of Power Ledger, which is a global blockchain-powered peer-to-peer trading platform. She is a world leader in electricity market disruption, and Jemma joins me now. Hi, Jemma.
Thanks so much for having me. Hi.
Jemma, hi. I think I last saw you at Sydney at the Smart Energy Council, and now you're in Western Australia at Perth. How are things going?
Yeah, it's very wintry here in Perth, but Power Ledger just had its 5th birthday last week, which is very exciting, big milestone for the business. And although, we haven't travelled, I did go to Sydney last week, but that was my first trip in 15 months. So I've been around for a long time.
Terrific, and congratulations on the 5 years. That's a terrific milestone, Jemma. Could you just give us sort of a bit of a 101 on blockchain and how it's used in energy markets for the audience?
Sure. So Power Ledger uses blockchain technology and traditional databases to create distributed electricity markets. So it's energy trading. As an example, we just did a deal with Carlton United Breweries, the beer company, who are purchasing surplus rooftop solar from households and paying them in cartons of beer delivered to their door. And that's all measured on the Power Ledger platform. So households can log in and see how much rooftop solar they sold to the brewery and how much beer they've accrued and when they're likely to get their delivery to their home. We can do more complex things than that, also virtual power plant trading. So if you've got a battery and you might dispatch that electricity into the wholesale market and pay back your investment in a battery faster. And we also have a trading module for renewable energy certificates. So that is another way of getting to 100% renewables by buying certificates, and each certificate represents 1 megawatt hour of renewable power that has been generated somewhere. And so there's lots of different aspects to do with distributed energy, and our software broadly tracks, traces, trades and settles those activities. And in terms of the blockchain, why we use a blockchain in some instances, it builds trust in areas which are quite complex, which people need to have faith in to want to do. If you're going to pay a premium for a renewable energy or a certificate, you want to know that it's not duplicated, that it exists, and using a blockchain adds verifiability. And for very complex things where you might have multiple different electricity retailers, wholesale markets, network operators, all trading together with very complex rules, at scale, this complex setting can be made more efficient using a blockchain.
Absolutely. Just picking up on what you've said there, Jemma, when we talk about, green blockchains, we know that there's a lot of stigma around blockchains that actually underpin services like Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has definitely been in the news, especially over the last couple of weeks, in regards to the environmental impact that it's having. And it uses a ton of electricity and it leaves a huge carbon footprint. Can you just elaborate a little bit, I guess, how your work is trying to, break down that stigma around that and create these blockchains for a better purpose?
Yeah, so there are many blockchains that are not, like the Bitcoin blockchain, which is the most famous, is a proof of work blockchain, and it is very energy intensive, but it could be powered entirely by green energy, and some of the Bitcoin miners are doing that. But there are many blockchains that don't use that much energy. In fact, they use no more energy than a regular database, so a proof of stake blockchain. And Power Ledger is using a proof of stake blockchain to manage its energy trading activities for its clients. So it's actually very energy efficient in that respect. But the idea of using a blockchain to facilitate distributed energy markets is really to drive the energy transition in a more efficient way. what's happened as a result of high penetration of renewables in many countries is actually higher costs, and it's because of centralised planning around renewables. But using blockchain, you can have more distributed energy markets with discrete sort of management of grids based on their needs, and that means that we won't have as high costs ultimately.
Sure. Look, I certainly love the idea of the peer-to-peer trading, Gemma. I think that's a fantastic idea. Now, you also were over in Iowa, and you've been busy in other places around the world. Could you tell us what you were doing over in the States, or working with the people in the States rather than being there?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't go to Iowa, but it's funny you should bring up that place. Iowa is an outlier. I mentioned that if you've got high penetration of renewables, you often get high energy costs. Iowa is the only place that has high penetration of renewables and low energy costs. And the reason is because they've got a lot of pumped hydro storage, and they also use the surplus wind to dry corn. But in America, we're working with American PowerNet and in the Midwest with the Midwest Renewable Energy Tracking Scheme for renewable energy certificate trading. And this particular project is quite exciting because we're adding time and space information to a renewable energy certificate. So what that means is, say you're Google and you want to buy renewable energy certificates matched against your energy load profile, and you're consuming energy at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday in New York. You want to be able to buy a certificate that was also generated at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday in New York. And so using our TraceX platform with the Midwest Renewable Energy Tracking Scheme for renewable energy certificates, you'll be able to do that soon. So we'll be launching that this year, which is very exciting. And the peer-to-peer trading isn't just for beer. Any consumer brand or service, be it like a supermarket or telecommunications service provider who've made commitments about sustainability, could procure some energy from their customers and pay them in product or vouchers. And I think that's an exciting way for them to for companies to engage and for consumers to sell their surplus electricity with their favourite brands and be paid in product.
Absolutely. It's a great idea. You should be really excited about it. Lastly, before we do have to wrap things up, Jemma, but I've got a question just quickly on your thoughts. We know the Australian budget has revealed that $600 million is going towards a new fossil gas plant. I mean, it's a controversial topic. What's your take on it quickly?
Well, I think that the centralised planning regime has, shown a market failure where there is insufficient supply. And at the moment, Australia intends to move towards two-sided markets by 2025. If it was actually doing that sooner, there would be a strong price signal to encourage the deployment of distributed storage across the grid that could meet that need without there having to be a government and taxpayer subsidised intervention. So for me, it says that the market failure we shouldn't try and taxpayer our way around it. We should address the issue head on and bring forward the two-sided market plans and put a strong price signal to build new generation and storage assets when and where they're needed, without having to rely on more taxpayer subsidy to plug a gap.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Jemma, thank you so much for your time. It's been short and sweet, and we could keep talking to you for hours about this topic, but thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
See you, Jemma.
Thanks so much for having me.
We know the G7 meeting has been held on climate. Now, what do we know so far?
Yeah, so this was an important meeting last week, which was looking at the energy and environment ministers. So Minister Susan Ley from the federal government was taking part in this virtual meeting last week. But the really important thing was that the biggest nations in the world, the 7 biggest nations, have said that governments and everybody needs to stop investing in fossil fuels, needs to stop investing in coal. And that's a really big thing for the world's biggest countries to say this, and it's consistent with the messages that have been coming from the UK and President Biden saying we need to get out of coal and we need to do it quickly. So this is really important, and Australia is again just really out of step with whereabouts the rest of the world is on this.
That's what I was going to say to you as well. Australia has been accused again and again of being left behind, and their actions as well being accused as very controversial when it comes to this, because the rest of the world seems to be moving ahead, but Australia is just still making these decisions in regards to fossil fuel plants and things like that, that just sort of are bringing Australia back in regards to the rest of the world. It sort of doesn't really make sense as to why they are doing this.
That's exactly right, Holly, and it's even more a problem when we've got the federal government in the same week announcing that it's going to spend $600 million of taxpayers' dollars on building a new fossil gas-fired plant in New South Wales, and all the experts are saying that this is not needed. Even the head of the Energy Security Board, Kerry Schott, who's a very well respected person, is saying that this doesn't stack up, it doesn't make sense. So it's really just Australia almost thumbing its nose or putting its two fingers up at the rest of the world, and it is terrible to be doing this.
We also know, in a complete comparison to Australia, Denmark's new government has actually revealed one of the world's most ambitious plans. What do we know about this as well?
Yeah, sure, Holly. So this is that the rest of the world are really stepping up their ambition. We had the USA committing to 50% reduction by 2030 a little while ago. And then we had Germany the other week saying they were going to reach 65% by 2030 in terms of their cuts. And now they've been even upped again. And we've now got Denmark we've set a target of 70% reduction by 2030.
Wow.
And this is going to be put in law, Holly. This is really great news.
I mean, is this what climate leadership looks like then?
This is exactly what it looks like. It's actually setting targets, and again, it's not talking about 2050 targets, it's talking about 2030 targets, because the world is heating up and we need to act now, or we're going to have more bushfires like we did a little while ago. We're going to have more sea level rise and more other extreme events.
In regards to global leaders, Scott, who do you think we'll see next step up to this plate?
Well, look, I actually think that what we're also seeing is some of the Asian countries stepping up. We've seen Thailand and Singapore and Indonesia even stepping up in terms of their ambition. It was important that we talked the other week that Indonesia is talking about getting out of coal, which is an amazing turnaround. We wouldn't have expected that a few years ago. So that's the sort of change which we're seeing, and it means that if you're investing in coal, you're not investing in the future.
Absolutely. We've heard lots of people say the same statement there for a while now. Continuing on this, I guess, the impact of climate change, there's a phrase called zombie fires. Can you just tell us what they are? What does that refer to?
This is a really fascinating story, and it's really important. And it really is about that what happens is that there's, in the Arctic Circle, there's all this carbon-rich peat. Now, that has always, on occasion, caught fire, sometimes due to lightning strikes or those sort of things. And then during the winters, that sort of ceases to be a problem. But what we're now seeing more and more is, because of the extended dry periods and the winters not being as cold, is that they're lasting through the winter. So we've got some of these zombie fires that are just going and going. In fact, there's one that I think has been going for about 5 years, which is sort of like the old fires in coal mines, where it took years to get out because they're just so hard to deal with.
Yeah, so I guess what's the main message that this is telling us about the climate?
It's really telling us that the world is heating up, and that what that's meaning is we're seeing more of these extreme events and these quite strange things which we're not used to happening. And that's also really important because you get these feedback loops as well, because the peat fires obviously melt more of the ice, which the cycle tends to continue.
Absolutely, it's definitely frightening stuff there, and that footage that we were just showing, it's really creepy and eerie to see the smoke coming up from the surface. It's so scary.
Yeah, it's sort of like that game of the zombies where you're trying to kill the zombies, Holly, but you can never quite get them.
Yeah.
And they just keep on coming for you, and that's what these fires are like, which is how they got their name, I think.
Well, you're up to date for now, and that's all we have time for on Ticker Climate. Now, you can visit us every Monday. Scott, as always, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure.
No worries, Holly. See you next time.